Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the stars slowly drift past the main viewing screen. The exploration ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months, mapping new star systems, and looking for planets that humans could one day call home. The mission was routine, boring even. But Jake knew that this kind of work was important for humanity's future among the stars. The Defiance was not a warship. She was built for exploration and research, carrying 847 crew members who were some of Earth's best scientists, engineers, and support staff. The ship had basic weapons for protection against pirates or dangerous space creatures, but nothing that could stand up to a real military vessel. Jake had served on warships before, but he preferred this peaceful work of expanding human knowledge and finding new worlds. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter was down in the engine room. As usual, she had been working on the ship's fusion drives for weeks, trying to squeeze more speed out of them. Lisa was the kind of engineer who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. She had joined the crew 2 years ago and quickly became one of Jake's most trusted officers. The captain knew that if something broke on the ship, Lisa would find a way to fix it. Navigation Officer Ryan Bell was at his station near the front of the bridge, plotting their course through the Kepler 442 system. Ryan was young but brilliant, with an amazing ability to find safe paths through dangerous asteroid fields and around unstable stars. He had discovered 3 potentially habitable planets during their mission, earning praise from Earth's command. Ryan loved his work and dreamed of being the first person to set foot on an alien world. The ship's sensors suddenly started beeping with urgent warnings. Ryan looked up from his console with concern. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position." "They're big, sir. Much bigger than us." Much leaned forward in his chair. "How many ships, Ryan?" 12 vessels, sir. They're coming out of hyperspace all around us." Ryan's voice was steady, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "Their energy signatures don't match anything in our database." Dr. Amy Foster was in the medical bay on Deck 7, checking on a crew member who had injured his hand in the machine shop. Amy had been the ship's chief medical officer for 5 years and had seen everything from simple cuts to serious radiation poisoning. She was known throughout the crew for her gentle manner and skill at healing both physical and emotional wounds. Amy believed that exploration was humanity's greatest adventure. She was proud to be part of it. Security Chief Ben Clark was making his rounds through the ship when the alarm klaxons started blaring. Ben had served in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years before joining the Defiance crew. He was a big man with steady hands and a calm voice that could reassure people in any crisis. Ben immediately headed for the bridge. Knowing that Captain Morrison would need his help if trouble was coming, the alien ships appeared on the main screen like metal mountains floating in space. Each one was at least 3 times larger than the Defiance, with strange curved hulls that seemed to absorb light. Weapon ports along their sides glowed with threatening energy. Jake had never seen ships like these before, but he knew they were not friendly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Defiance." He broadcast on all frequencies. "We are on a peaceful exploration mission. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came immediately, but not in words. 12 beams of bright plasma energy lanced out from the alien ships, striking the Defiance's shields. With tremendous force, the ship shook violently, throwing crew members to the floor. Emergency lights flickered on as the main power grid struggled to handle the massive energy drain. "Shields down to 60%, Ryan reported, his fingers flying over his console. "They're charging weapons for another attack." Jake grabbed his communicator. "All hands, this is the captain. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. All crew to emergency stations. This is not a drill." Throughout the ship, people dropped what they were doing and ran to their battle positions. Dr. Amy Foster began preparing the medical bay for casualties, setting up extra beds and gathering supplies. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter raced through the corridors toward the main reactor, knowing that the ship would need every bit of power she could give it. The second alien attack was even stronger than the first. The plasma beams punched through the weakened shields and struck the ship's hull directly. Explosions echoed through the corridors as bulkheads buckled and systems failed. The lights went out on 3 decks, and the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. "Hull breaches on decks 4, 6, and 9, reported Damage Control Officer Tony Davis over the communicator. "Emergency force fields are holding, but we're losing atmosphere fast." Jake tried to think of options, but the Defiance was completely outmatched. The alien ships had weapons and shields far beyond anything humans had developed. His ship's small defensive cannons were firing continuously, but their energy beams just bounced harmlessly off the alien hulls. "Lisa, can you give me more power to weapons?" Jake called to the engine room. "I'm trying, Captain, but we're all ready." "Running at maximum capacity?" Lisa's voice came back through the static-filled communicator. "These aliens have technology we've never seen before. Our weapons can't even scratch their shields." The third attack came from all 12 alien ships. At once, the concentrated firepower overwhelmed the Defiance's remaining shields and tore into the ship's structure. The main engine room exploded in a ball of plasma, sending shockwaves through the entire vessel. Half the ship's weapons were destroyed. In seconds, leaving them almost defenseless, Communications Officer Lucy Hamilton managed to send out a distress signal before her equipment was destroyed by a power surge. The signal would take years to reach the nearest human colony, but she hoped someone would eventually know what had happened to them. Ben Clark organized damage control teams throughout the ship, but the situation was hopeless. The aliens were systematically destroying every important system on the Defiance. The ship's weapons, engines, and defenses were being methodically eliminated with surgical precision. Dr. Amy Foster worked frantically as wounded crew members poured into the medical bay. She had never seen injuries this severe from ship-to-ship combat. The alien weapons seemed designed to cause maximum damage to both equipment and personnel. She did her best to save lives, but her supplies were limited and the wounded kept coming. After 17 minutes of devastating attack, the alien ships suddenly stopped firing. The Defiance drifted helplessly in space, her hull torn open in dozens of places, her engines cold and dead. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through the damaged corridors, and the sound of escaping atmosphere could be heard throughout the ship. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his damaged bridge, surveying the destruction around him. Half his crew was injured or dead. His ship was crippled beyond repair, and they were stranded light years from help. He had no choice but to surrender and hope the aliens would show mercy. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Morrison," he broadcast. "On the emergency frequency, we surrender. We are no longer a threat to you. Please allow us to treat our wounded." The largest alien ship moved closer to the Defiance, and Jake could see strange symbols glowing on its hull. A voice spoke in perfect English, cold and emotionless. "Humans, your species is weak, and your technology is primitive. We are the Zephyrian Empire, rulers of this sector of space. You will not expand further into our territory." Alien ship. Extended mechanical arms that attached to the Defiance's hull. Boarding tubes connected the two vessels, and soon armored figures were walking through the damaged corridors of the human ship. The Zephyrians were tall and thin, with silver skin and large black eyes that seemed to see everything. The aliens spent 2 hours examining the Defiance's technology, taking detailed scans of every system and piece of equipment. They seemed particularly interested in the human computer systems and weapons, though their leader made it clear that they considered everything primitive and worthless. "Your weapons cannot harm us, and your ships are slow and fragile," the Zephyrian commander told Jake. "We will leave you here as a warning to others of your species. Do not venture into our space again." The aliens returned to their ships and prepared to leave. Jake realized with horror that they intended to abandon the crew in their crippled vessel, leaving them to die slowly as their life support systems failed. "Wait," he called out desperately. "At least let us contact our people. Tell them what happened." The Zephyrian commander's reply was final. "Your fate will serve as a message to humanity. Stay in your own corner of the galaxy or face extinction." The 12 alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the USS Defiance alone in the darkness of space. Captain Jake Morrison looked around at his damaged bridge and injured crew, knowing that they faced almost certain death. But he also knew that humans had survived worse situations before, and he was not ready to give up. The real battle was just beginning. The silence after the Zephyrian ships disappeared was more frightening than the battle itself. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his broken bridge, listening to the sounds of a dying ship. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting strange shadows. On the damaged walls, the smell of burned electronics and escaping atmosphere filled the air. Through the holes in the hull, he could see the cold stars that might be the last thing his crew would ever see. Chief. Engineer Lisa Carter was already moving through the ship before the captain could give orders. She knew that without life support, everyone would be dead within hours. Lisa grabbed her emergency toolkit and headed for the main atmospheric processing unit on Deck 5. The corridor was dark and filled with floating debris, but she pushed through it with determination that came from years of fixing impossible problems. The atmospheric processor was badly damaged, 3 of its main filters completely destroyed, and the control systems fried by power surges. Lisa looked at the wreckage and started calculating what she could do with the spare parts available. She had always believed that any machine could be fixed if you were willing to think creatively and work hard enough. Dr. Amy Foster was dealing with her own crisis in the medical bay. Wounded crew members kept arriving, and her supplies were running dangerously low. She had 23 people with serious injuries and only enough medical equipment for half that number. Amy worked without stopping, using everything from surgical tools to spare fabric from torn uniforms to save lives. Navigation. Officer Ryan Bell was trying to restore power to the ship's computer systems. Most of the main processors had been destroyed, but he found 3 backup units that were still functioning. Ryan was good with computers and started connecting the surviving units together, hoping to create a network that could run basic ship functions. The first priority was air to breathe. Lisa Carter worked for 12 straight hours, taking apart equipment from other parts of the ship to build a new atmospheric system. She used parts from the food processors, the water recycling unit, and even some components from the damaged weapons systems. It was not pretty, but it worked. Life support is stable for now, Lisa reported to Captain Morrison over the emergency communicator. But this is just a temporary fix. We need to do major repairs if we want to survive more than a few weeks. Security Chief Ben Clark was organizing teams to search for survivors and assess the damage throughout the ship. His people found 12 crew members trapped in damaged sections and brought them to safety. Ben also started making lists of what equipment was still working and what could be salvaged from the wreckage. The ship's hull had been breached in 47 different places. Some holes were small and could be patched with emergency materials, but others were huge tears that would require major reconstruction work. The main engine room was completely destroyed, along with most of the power generation equipment. The weapon systems were in ruins. Many of the ship's sensors were offline. Ryan Bell finally got the computer network running after 18 hours of continuous work. The system was slow and unreliable, but it could provide basic information about the ship's condition. What he found was not encouraging. The damage was so extensive that any normal crew would have given up hope. "Captain, I've got the damage assessment report," Ryan said when Morrison visited the makeshift computer center. "We've lost main engines, primary weapons, most of our sensors, and about 60% of our power generation capacity. Hull integrity is compromised on 8 decks." Jake Morrison studied the numbers and felt the weight of command pressing down on him. He had 847 crew members depending on him to find a way out of this situation. But the ship was barely holding together. Most captains would be preparing funeral services and writing final messages to families back on Earth. Dr. Amy Foster had managed to stabilize most of the wounded. But she was running out of medical supplies fast. She started asking other crew members to donate anything that could be used for medical purposes. People gave her clothing for bandages, alcohol from the recreation areas for antiseptic, and even personal items that could be sterilized and used as medical tools. Supply Officer Tony Davis took inventory of everything the crew had left: food, Supplies would last about 8 months if they rationed carefully. Water could be recycled indefinitely, as long as the purification systems kept working. The biggest problem was that many essential ship components were completely destroyed and could not be replaced with what they had available. Communications. Officer Lucy Hamilton was trying to repair the long-range communication array, but the damage was too severe. She could send short-range signals within the local star system, but there were no other human ships close enough to receive them. The nearest Earth colony was more than 20 light-years away. Their distress signal would take decades to reach anyone who could help. After 3 days of emergency repairs, Captain Morrison called a meeting of his senior staff in the damaged conference room. The officers sat around a table that was bolted to the floor but tilted at an odd angle because the room's support structure had been twisted by the alien attack. "Give me the honest truth about our situation," Jake said to his team. "No sugarcoating. I need to know exactly what we're facing." Lisa Carter spoke first. "The ship will never fly again, not with conventional repairs. The engine damage is too extensive, and we don't have the parts or facilities to rebuild a proper propulsion system. Life support is working, but barely. We're using jury-rigged equipment that could fail at any time." Dr. Amy Foster reported next. "We lost 31 crew members in the attack, and 46 others are still recovering from serious injuries. Medical supplies will be exhausted within 2 months. After that, I won't be able to treat even minor injuries properly." Tony Davis had the supply numbers memorized. "Food for 8 months, maybe 9, if we cut rations further. We have enough. Raw materials to patch holes in the hull and make basic repairs, but nothing for major reconstruction. The fabrication units in the workshop are still working, so we can make small parts and tools." Ryan Bell had been working with Lucy Hamilton to assess their communication and navigation capabilities. "We can't contact Earth or any human colonies. Our position is known, but it would take a rescue mission years to reach us, even if they started. Today, the computer systems are functional, but running at about 30% normal capacity." Ben Clark had the security report. "Crew morale is low, but stable. People are scared, but they're still following orders and working together. We have enough small arms and personal equipment, but no ship weapons that can function. If the aliens come back, we have no way to defend ourselves." Captain Morrison listened to all the reports and made a decision that would change everything. Instead of accepting defeat, he decided that they would not just survive, but find a way to turn their situation into an advantage. "I'm not going to lie to you, Jake," told his officers. "Any reasonable person would say we're doomed. Our ship is crippled, we're stranded in empty space, and we have no way to call for help. But I've been thinking about something the Zephyrian commander said. He called our technology primitive and worthless." Lisa Carter looked puzzled. "Sir, compared to what they have, our technology is primitive." "Maybe," Jake replied, "but primitive doesn't mean useless. It means different. Those aliens have advanced technology, but they also have expectations about how things should work.
Oh.
They left us here because they assumed we would die like any other species would in this situation." Dr. Amy Foster began to understand what the captain was thinking. "You're saying they don't understand how humans respond to impossible situations?" "Exactly," Jake said, with the first smile he had shown since the attack. "They don't know that humans have a long history of taking desperate situations and turning them into opportunities. They don't know that we're stubborn enough to refuse, to die when anyone sensible would give up." Ryan Bell was getting excited by the idea. "So what are you proposing, Captain?" Jake Morrison stood up and looked around the damaged conference room. "We're going to rebuild this ship, but not the way it was before. We're going to use everything we learned from that alien attack to make something new. Something those Zephyrians won't expect." Lisa Carter was already thinking like an engineer. "The normal safety regulations and design standards don't apply anymore. We could try things that would never be approved under normal circumstances." "That's right," Jake agreed. "We don't have to follow the rules anymore because the rules assume we have proper repair facilities and replacement parts. We'll have to improvise everything, which means we can experiment with ideas that Earth's command would never allow." Ben Clark was starting to see the possibilities. A ship built by desperate people with nothing to lose might be more dangerous than one built in a proper shipyard. Dr. Amy Foster had spent her career healing people, but she understood something about fighting too. The aliens studied our weapons and technology during their attack. They know exactly what standard human ships can do. But they don't know what we might build if we throw away the standard designs. Tony Davis was thinking about supplies and logistics. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter stood in what used to be the main cargo bay, surrounded by piles of salvaged equipment and scrap metal. The space had been transformed into the largest workshop in human history, with work tables made from hull plating and tools hanging from every available surface. She looked at the chaos around her and smiled. This was exactly the kind of challenge she lived for. The first major decision was what to do about power. The ship's main reactor had been destroyed in the attack, along with most of the backup power systems. Lisa had managed to keep basic life support running with emergency batteries and a small fusion cell salvaged from a shuttle. But that would not be enough for what they were planning. Lisa had an idea that would have gotten her fired from any normal engineering job. Instead of building a new reactor according to standard designs, she wanted to connect every power source on the ship into one massive network. This included the emergency batteries, the shuttle fusion cells, the backup generators, and even the power cells from handheld tools and personal devices. "You want to do what?" asked Tony Davis when Lisa explained her plan. Tony was responsible for keeping track of all the ship's supplies, and he was worried about the safety of such a dangerous modification. "I want to wire everything together so that any system on the ship can draw power from every available source at the same time," Lisa explained. "Normal ships have safety systems that prevent this because it could cause massive explosions. But we're not normal anymore." Ryan Bell understood the concept immediately. "You're talking about turning the entire ship into one giant power grid? When we need maximum energy for weapons or engines, we could drain every battery and generator simultaneously." "Exactly," Lisa said. "It's incredibly dangerous, but it would give us power levels that no normal ship could achieve. The Zephyrians won't expect a human vessel to be able to generate that much energy." Dr. Amy Foster had been listening to the conversation while treating a crew member's injured hand. "What happens if something goes wrong with this power grid? Could it kill everyone on the ship?" Lisa nodded honestly. "Yes, it could. But staying here and waiting to die slowly will definitely kill everyone. At least this way we have a chance to fight back." Captain Morrison had given Lisa permission to try anything that might work, so she began the dangerous process of rewiring the entire ship. She worked with a team of 12 engineers and technicians, carefully connecting power systems that were never meant to work together. It took 3 weeks of constant work, and twice they nearly caused explosions that would have destroyed what was left of the ship. While Lisa worked on the power systems, weapons specialist Greg Palmer was trying to solve the problem of how to fight ships with superior technology. Defiance's original weapons had been completely useless against Zephyrian shields, bouncing off like toy projectiles. Greg needed to find a way to hurt enemies that seemed invulnerable. Greg had an advantage: that most weapons designers did not have access to alien technology. During their attack, the Zephyrians had left behind small pieces of their hull plating and shield generators that had been damaged by the Defiance's desperate return fire. Greg studied these fragments carefully, looking for weaknesses. What he discovered was that Zephyrian shields were designed to stop energy weapons like lasers and plasma cannons. They were incredibly effective against those types of attacks, but they had a weakness. The shields were not as good at stopping physical projectiles, especially ones moving at very high speeds. Greg designed a new type of weapon that combined human and alien technology in ways that neither species had tried before. He took human kinetic weapons, basically guns that fired solid projectiles, and added power systems salvaged from Zephyrian energy weapons. The result was a hybrid cannon that could fire metal projectiles at nearly the speed of light. The beauty of this design is that it uses the aliens' own technology against them, Greg explained to Captain Morrison. "We're taking their power systems and using them to accelerate our projectiles to speeds that their shields can't handle." Engineer Danny Walsh was working on a different problem: the ship's hull. The Defiance had been torn apart by the alien attack. With holes and damaged sections throughout its structure, Danny needed to find a way to make the ship strong enough to survive the stresses of high-speed combat. Danny's solution was as radical as Lisa's power grid. Instead of trying to repair the hull to its original specifications, he decided to rebuild it using a combination of human and alien materials. The Zephyrians had left behind fragments of their armor plating, which Danny discovered was made from an incredibly strong metal alloy. Working with the ship's fabrication units, Danny created a new type of hull plating that combined human titanium steel with small amounts of the alien metal. The hybrid material was stronger than either component alone and could withstand tremendous impacts without breaking. It was also lighter than conventional armor, which would help with the ship's maneuverability. The process of rebuilding the hull was like performing surgery on a living patient. Danny and his team had to carefully remove damaged sections and replace them with the new hybrid plating, all while keeping the ship's atmosphere and structural integrity intact. They worked in spacesuits, welding new plates into place while the stars watched overhead. Systems analyst Kate Murphy was facing the most complex challenge of all. The ship's computer systems had been severely damaged in the attack, but Kate needed them to control all the new modifications that the crew was installing. More importantly, she needed the computers to work faster and more efficiently than any human designed system had ever worked before. Kate made a decision that violated every principle of safe computer programming. She removed all the safety limitations and redundancy systems from the ship's software, creating a streamlined operating system that could respond instantly to any command. This made the computers incredibly fast, but also incredibly dangerous. Normal ship computers have safeguards that prevent them from doing things that might damage the ship or hurt the crew. Kate explained to Navigation Officer Ryan Bell, "I'm removing those safeguards so our systems can react faster than anything the Zephyrians have." Ryan understood the implications immediately. "You're creating a computer system that could kill us all if it makes a mistake." "That's right, Kate." Agreed. "But it's also creating a system that can outthink and outreact any normal ship computer. In a battle, speed of response is everything." Dr. Amy Foster was working on the strangest project of all. During the Zephyrian boarding operation, she had managed to collect biological samples from the aliens. Amy had been studying these samples, trying to understand Zephyrian physiology and looking for weaknesses that could be exploited. What Amy discovered changed everything. The Zephyrians had highly advanced brains that were extremely sensitive to certain types of electromagnetic radiation. Frequencies that were harmless to humans could disrupt Zephyrian nervous systems, causing confusion, paralysis, or even unconsciousness. Working with communications officer Lucy Hamilton, Amy designed a broadcasting system that could generate these disruptive frequencies. The system could be used as a weapon, broadcasting electromagnetic pulses that would incapacitate Zephyrian crews while leaving humans completely unaffected. "This is biological warfare," Amy told Captain Morrison during one of their planning meetings. "We're developing weapons that target the aliens' biology specifically. It goes against everything I was taught as a doctor." Jake Morrison understood Amy's moral concerns, but he also understood the reality of their situation. "Those aliens destroyed our ship and left us to die. They didn't show us any mercy, and we can't afford to show them any either." The modification work continued for months. Every crew member contributed to the project, whether they were welding hull plates, rewiring power systems, or testing new weapons. People who had never been engineers learned to use tools and fabrication equipment. Scientists became weapons designers, and medical officers became biological warfare specialists. Supply Officer Tony Davis coordinated the complex logistics of the rebuild. He tracked every piece of metal, every electronic component, and every tool as they were moved around the ship and incorporated into new systems. Tony also managed the rationing of food and water, making sure the crew stayed healthy enough to continue working. Security Chief Ben Clark organized work crews and maintained discipline during the long reconstruction process. People were tired, scared, and sometimes angry about their situation. But Ben kept them focused on the goal of survival and revenge. He also began training combat teams to use the new weapons and systems that were being developed. The ship that was emerging from this reconstruction bore little resemblance to the original USS Defiance. The hull was covered with hybrid armor plating that gleamed with an alien shine. Strange new weapons protruded from gun ports that had been cut into previously empty sections. Power conduits ran along the outside of the ship like veins, glowing. With energy from the integrated power grid inside the ship, the changes were even more dramatic. Corridors had been widened to accommodate the new power systems and weapons conduits. Control rooms had been redesigned around the modified computer systems. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the rebuilt bridge of what had once been the USS Defiance, watching his crew prepare for the first test of their impossible creation. The bridge looked nothing like it had before the attack. New control stations lined the walls, displaying information from systems that no human ship had ever carried. Strange lights pulsed through transparent power conduits that ran along the ceiling. Carrying energy from Lisa Carter's integrated power grid, the ship itself felt different now. The deck plates hummed with barely contained energy, and the air seemed to vibrate with the power of systems running at levels that should have been impossible. Jake could feel the raw potential of their creation through the soles of his boots. It's like standing on top of a controlled explosion that could be unleashed at any moment. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter was at her new engineering station, watching dozens of displays that showed power levels throughout the ship. Her integrated power grid was working perfectly, allowing any system to draw energy from every available source simultaneously.
Oh.
The readings on her screens would have terrified any normal engineer, but Lisa felt only pride at what her team had accomplished. "All power systems are green, Captain," Lisa reported. "We're running at 30% capacity and the grid is stable. When we need maximum power, we can drain every battery and generator on the ship at the same time." Navigation. Officer Ryan. Bell was testing the new propulsion system that Lisa and her team had built from salvaged parts and creative engineering. Instead of conventional engines, they had created a system that used controlled plasma explosions to generate thrust. It was dangerous and unpredictable, but it could accelerate the ship to speeds that would tear apart any normal vessel. "System is ready for testing, sir," Ryan announced. "The plasma drive is charged and stable. I've calculated a safe test pattern that will let us see what this ship can really do." Jake nodded to Ryan. "Take us out slowly. Let's see how she handles." Ryan activated the plasma drive with careful precision. The ship lurched forward as the first controlled explosion pushed them through space faster than the original Defiance had ever moved. The hybrid hull plating that Danny Walsh had created absorbed the stress without any signs of damage, and the ship's new structure held together perfectly. Systems. Analyst Kate Murphy was monitoring the computer systems that controlled everything from weapons targeting to life support. Her streamlined software was responding to commands faster than any human-designed system had ever responded before. The computers could process information and execute commands in microseconds, giving the ship reaction times that would be impossible for any normal vessel. "Computer response time is optimal, Captain," Kate reported. "All systems are responding instantly to commands. The artificial intelligence subroutines are learning and adapting as we test different functions." Weapons specialist Greg Palmer was preparing to test the hybrid cannons that he had built using human and alien technology. The weapons were mounted in new gun ports that had been cut into the ship's hull, and they could draw power directly from Lisa's integrated grid when needed. Each cannon was capable of firing projectiles at nearly the speed of light, using alien power systems to accelerate human ammunition to impossible velocities. "Weapon systems are charged and ready, sir," Greg announced. "I've prepared a series of test targets using debris from our reconstruction work. With your permission, I'd like to see what these cannons can do." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had spent months rebuilding their ship into something that had never existed before. Now it was time to find out if their desperate gamble had worked. "Fire when ready, Greg." The first test shot was fired at low power to avoid damaging the ship with recoil. Even at reduced energy levels, the hybrid cannon fired its projectile so fast that it was invisible to human eyes. The piece of metal debris that served as a target simply disappeared. Vaporized by the impact of the high-speed projectile, Greg increased the power level for the second shot. This time, the recoil made the entire ship shudder, but the hybrid hull held together, and the power grid supplied energy without any problems. The second target, a larger piece of hull plating, was not just destroyed, but turned into a cloud of superheated plasma that glowed briefly before cooling in the vacuum of space. Incredible, Greg said, studying the readings from his weapons. Systems. The projectiles are hitting with more force than our original ship's entire weapons array combined. Cannons can punch through any armor I've ever heard of. Dr. Amy Foster was testing the biological warfare system that she and communications officer Lucy Hamilton had developed. The electromagnetic broadcasting equipment could generate frequencies that would disrupt Zephyrian nervous systems while remaining harmless to humans. Amy felt conflicted about creating weapons designed to target specific alien biology, but she understood that their survival might depend on having every possible advantage. Biological warfare system is operational, Amy reported reluctantly. The electromagnetic pulse generators are functioning within safe parameters for humans, but should be devastating to Zephyrian physiology. Security Chief Ben Clark had been training combat teams to use the ship's new capabilities in actual battle situations. His people had learned to coordinate the various weapon systems and to board enemy vessels using equipment that had been modified with alien technology. Ben was confident that his teams could handle any Zephyrian boarding parties that tried to attack their ship. Combat teams are ready, Captain, Ben announced. We've drilled with all the new systems and weapons. The crew knows how to use everything we've built. Ship's new sensor array was another marvel of hybrid engineering. Ryan Bell and Lucy Hamilton had combined human detection equipment with salvaged Zephyrian technology to create sensors that could detect ships at much greater distances than before. The enhanced sensors could also identify weak points in enemy formations and track multiple targets simultaneously. Sensors are performing beyond expectations, Lucy reported. We can detect ships at ranges that would be impossible with standard human technology. The alien components have given us capabilities that our enemies won't expect. Jake Morrison walked around the bridge, checking on each station and watching his crew work with their revolutionary equipment. The transformation was complete, not just in the ship systems, but in the people themselves. Scientists had become warriors. Engineers had become weapons designers. Medical officers had become specialists in biological warfare. The ship's new artificial intelligence was perhaps the most impressive achievement of all. Kate Murphy had created a computer system that could coordinate all the ship's systems simultaneously, managing power distribution, target selection, weapons firing, and defensive maneuvering without human input. The AI could react to threats and opportunities faster than any human crew could respond. AI systems are fully operational, Kate announced. The computer can now fight the ship automatically if needed, coordinating all weapons and defenses while the crew focuses on strategy and tactics. Supply Officer Tony Davis had been monitoring the ship's resource consumption during the tests. The new systems used more power and materials than the original Defiance, but they were also far more efficient at accomplishing their goals. Tony was confident that they had enough supplies to sustain extended combat operations. Resource consumption is within acceptable parameters, Tony reported. We have enough ammunition, power, and supplies for multiple engagements. The fabrication units can manufacture replacement parts and ammunition as needed. After 6 hours of testing, Jake Morrison was satisfied that their rebuilt ship could perform as designed. Every system was working better than expected, and the crew had proven that they could operate equipment that no human had ever used before. The ship that had once been the USS Defiance was now something entirely new, a hybrid vessel that combined the best of human and alien technology in ways that neither species had imagined. All stations, this is the captain, Jake announced over the ship's communication system. Testing is complete, and all systems are performing excellently. You have all done incredible work over the past months, creating something that the galaxy has never seen before. The crew throughout the ship cheered at the captain's words. They had taken their greatest defeat and turned it into their greatest achievement. The ship that had been left for dead was now more powerful than any vessel in the human fleet, but Jake Morrison knew that the real test was still coming. The Zephyrians would return eventually, expecting to find only frozen corpses floating in a dead ship. Instead, they would find humans who had refused to accept defeat and had built themselves. A weapon capable of challenging the most advanced military force in the galaxy, Dr. Amy. Foster approached the captain with a concerned expression. "Sir, I need to ask you something important. When the Zephyrians return, and we use these weapons against them, we'll be killing people who were just following orders from their leaders. Are we prepared for that responsibility?" Jake looked at Amy with understanding and respect. She was asking the kind of moral question that separated humans from their enemies. The Zephyrians had attacked without provocation and left them to die without mercy. Admiral Vexstar was returning to the Kepler 442 system with confidence and satisfaction. 6 months had passed since his fleet had destroyed the human ship, and he expected to find only floating debris and frozen corpses. The Admiral commanded. The same 12 dreadnoughts that had easily crushed the primitive Earth vessel, and he planned to use this visit as a training exercise for his newer officers. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled this sector of space for over 1,000 years, and Admiral Vexstar had never encountered a species that could challenge their technological superiority. The humans had been just another primitive race that needed to be taught their place in the galactic order. Their destruction would serve as a warning to other species that might consider expanding into Zephyrian territory. Captain Jake Morrison was waiting for them. His sensors had detected the approaching Zephyrian fleet while they were still hours away, giving his crew plenty of time to prepare for battle. The ship that had once been the USS Defiance was now hidden in an asteroid field, its hybrid hull reflecting starlight in ways that confused enemy sensors. "Zephyrian fleet detected at maximum sensor range," announced Communications Officer Lucy Hamilton. 12 ships, same configuration as before. "They're moving directly toward our original position." Jake Morrison smiled grimly as he watched the alien ships approach. They expect to find a derelict wreck. Instead, they're going to discover what happens when you leave humans alive with nothing to lose. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter was monitoring her integrated power grid, watching as energy flowed through systems that no normal ship could contain. The power levels were incredible, far beyond anything the original Defiance could have generated. Every battery generator and power cell on the ship was connected and ready to provide maximum energy when the battle began. "All power systems ready, Captain," Lisa reported. "The grid is stable, and we can go to maximum output on your command." Admiral Vexstar was puzzled when his sensors failed to detect the human ship where it should have been. He had expected to find the Defiance drifting powerless in space, but the area was empty except for some scattered asteroids. The Admiral assumed that the wreckage had been pulled into the nearby star by gravitational forces. Scanned the system thoroughly. Admiral Vexstar ordered his sensor operators. "I want to confirm that the human vessel has been completely destroyed." The Zephyrian ships spread out across the star system, using their advanced sensors to search for any trace of the human ship. They were looking for debris, energy signatures, or any evidence of what had happened to the Defiance and its crew. What they found instead was something that their databases could not identify: navigation. Officer Ryan Bell was piloting their transformed ship through the asteroid field with precision that would have been impossible for any normal vessel. The hybrid propulsion system responded instantly to his commands, and the ship moved through space like a living creature rather than a mechanical construct. "We're in position, Captain," Ryan announced. "The enemy fleet is scattered and vulnerable. We can engage individual ships before they can coordinate their response." Weapons specialist Greg Palmer had all of his hybrid cannons charged and ready to fire. The weapons were connected directly to Lisa's power grid, allowing them to draw massive amounts of energy for each shot. Greg had selected armor-piercing projectiles for the first attack, designed to punch through Zephyrian hull plating like it was made of paper. "Weapons are hot and ready, sir," Greg reported. "Target selection is optimal. We can take out their command ship with the first salvo." Dr. Amy Foster was standing by at her biological warfare station ready to broadcast electromagnetic pulses that would disrupt Zephyrian nervous systems. She still felt uncomfortable about using weapons designed to target alien biology, but she understood that their survival depended on using every advantage they possessed. "Biological warfare systems are charged and ready," Amy announced reluctantly. "Electromagnetic pulse generators are at full power." Captain Morrison looked around his bridge at the crew that had transformed themselves from explorers into warriors. These people had taken their greatest defeat and turned it into their greatest weapon. Now it was time to show the Zephyrians what humans could accomplish when they were pushed beyond their limits. "All stations, this is the captain," Jake announced. "Over the ship's communication system. 6 months ago, these aliens destroyed our ship and left us to die. They thought humans were too primitive to be worth their concern. Today we're going to teach them that underestimating humanity is a fatal mistake." The first Zephyrian ship to die was Admiral Vextar's own flagship. The transformed human vessel emerged from the asteroid field like a predator striking from ambush, its hybrid cannons firing projectiles at nearly the speed of light. The Admiral watched in disbelief as his supposedly invulnerable shields were torn apart by weapons that should not have existed. "Greg." Palmer's armor-piercing rounds punched through the Zephyrian flagship's hull as if it were made of thin metal. The projectiles carried so much kinetic energy that they vaporized everything they touched, creating massive explosions that tore the alien ship apart from the inside. Within seconds, the flagship was nothing but expanding debris and escaping atmosphere. "Direct hit on the enemy flagship," Greg announced with satisfaction. "Target destroyed." Moving to secondary targets, Admiral Vextar barely escaped his dying ship in an emergency pod, watching in horror as the vessel he had commanded for 20 years was reduced to scrap metal by a single volley from the human ship. The weapons that had destroyed his flagship were beyond anything in Zephyrian military databases. The second Zephyrian ship tried to return fire, but systems analyst Kate Murphy's artificial intelligence was already maneuvering their vessel out of the line of attack. The computer system could react faster than any biological crew, predicting enemy movements and responding with inhuman precision. "AI systems are engaging multiple targets simultaneously," Kate reported. "Computer-controlled evasion and targeting are operating at optimal efficiency." Dr. Amy Foster activated her biological warfare system as the third Zephyrian ship closed within range. The electromagnetic pulse broadcast struck the alien vessel like an invisible hammer, disrupting the nervous systems of every crew member. Aboard, the enemy ship drifted helplessly in space as its crew collapsed unconscious at their stations. "Biological warfare system effective," Amy announced. "Enemy vessel is disabled. Crew appears to be incapacitated." Security Chief Ben Clark was coordinating boarding parties that were preparing to capture the disabled Zephyrian ships. His teams had trained extensively with equipment modified using alien technology, and they were ready to take control of enemy vessels that could provide valuable intelligence and resources. "Boarding teams are ready to launch, Captain," Ben reported. "We can secure the disabled ships and capture their technology." The battle that Admiral Vextar had expected to be a simple training exercise had become a nightmare. His technologically superior fleet was being systematically destroyed by a single, human vessel that seemed to possess capabilities that should have been impossible. Ships that had never been defeated in centuries of warfare were being torn apart by weapons they could not understand. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter was pushing her power grid to maximum output, providing energy levels that would have destroyed any normal ship. The hybrid hull plating that Danny Walsh had created was absorbing the tremendous stresses without showing any signs of damage. All systems were performing beyond their design specifications. "Power grid at maximum output," Lisa announced. "All systems stable and operating beyond normal parameters." The fourth and fifth Zephyrian ships were destroyed within minutes of each other. Greg Palmer's hybrid cannons were firing continuously, now each shot powered by the combined output of every energy source on the ship. The alien vessels simply could not withstand the incredible kinetic force of projectiles accelerated to impossible velocities. Navigation. Officer Ryan Bell was maneuvering their ship through the battle zone with skill that seemed almost supernatural. The plasma propulsion system allowed them to change direction and speed faster than any conventional vessel could match, making them nearly impossible for the enemy to target effectively. "Maneuvering systems performing excellently," Ryan reported. "We're faster and more agile than anything they have." Admiral Vextar watched from his escape pod as his entire fleet was destroyed in less than 8 minutes. Ships that had conquered dozens of star systems were being eliminated one by a human vessel that fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The humans had not just survived their attack, but had used it as the foundation for creating something far more dangerous than the original ship. The 6th, 7th, and 8th Zephyrian ships attempted to coordinate their attacks. But Kate Murphy's artificial intelligence was predicting their movements and countering their tactics faster than they could implement them. The computer system was learning from each engagement, becoming more effective with every passing second. Communications. Officer Lucy Hamilton was recording everything that happened during the battle, creating a complete record of the engagement. That could be transmitted to Earth and other human colonies.